My name is Lucas. I'm 21 years old, and this is a story I've never told anyone. Whenever I think about it, my heart starts pounding all over again. It began with something unexpected, something that changed my world and brought me face to face with desires I had barely understood before. It was a few months back when our house got hit hard by a storm, and the damage made it unlivable for a while. We had nowhere to go, so my dad's old friend Tiago offered us a place to stay. I didn't know him all that well. He was just someone I remembered seeing at family gatherings a couple of times. But what I did know was that he lived in this amazing apartment way bigger and way more modern than our old place. The whole vibe was sleek and elegant, with tall windows that let in tons of light and furniture that looked like it belonged in a magazine. It felt like I'd walked into another world. Tiago was 37, single, and openly gay. He didn't even hesitate to let us in, acting like it was no big deal to have us stay. The day we arrived, he greeted us at the door with a big, warm smile, helping us with our bags and giving us a tour of his apartment. Even though the situation was far from ideal, I felt thankful that he welcomed us with such open arms. But I had no idea just how much this act of kindness would end up changing my life. I'd always thought Tiago was attractive, even when I was younger. He had this confident, magnetic energy about him that I noticed even when I was a teen. He was tall, standing at least 6'2", with broad shoulders and a well-built body that clearly showed he worked out. When we arrived, he was wearing a fitted black t-shirt that highlighted every muscle and jeans that hugged his hips just right. His dark hair had these hints of silver at the temples, which made him look even more handsome. Those first few days at his place, I felt comfortable. He was attentive, making sure we had everything we needed, and always going out of his way to make us feel at home. And there was something about how he treated me. He seemed extra kind. Sometimes, as he'd walk past me, he'd rest his hand on my shoulder, or gently brush his fingers through my hair when we sat at the table. It seemed innocent, but every touch sent a little shockwave through me. I began to wonder if maybe he could sense how I felt about him, if maybe there was something unspoken happening between us. One afternoon, my dad went out to run some errands. I was sitting on the couch trying to focus on the TV when Tiago came over and sat down right next to me. He didn't say much, just asked how I was settling in. But the way he looked at me made my mind go blank. His hand rested on the back of the couch, close enough to touch my shoulder, and I found myself leaning in just a bit, wanting to be near him. The next morning, my dad had to leave for a business trip, leaving just me and Tiago alone in the apartment. Still half asleep, I got up to use the bathroom, not even thinking to knock. As I opened the door, there he was, fresh out of the shower, standing in front of the mirror, completely bare. For a second, I couldn't breathe. Every muscle, every curve of his body was right there in front of me. His strong shoulders, his toned back, his muscular legs, it was like he was carved out of marble. I felt my face go hot, realizing I'd been staring too long. "Sorry," I whispered, quickly shutting the door and backing away, my heart pounding in my chest. That image, him standing there, was burned into my mind. Not long after, I heard the door open. Tiago stepped out of the bathroom, a towel slung loosely around his hips, his skin still glistening from the shower. He caught my eye and gave me this smile, one that sent a shiver down my spine. He walked over slowly, locking his gaze on mine, and said, "Lucas, no need to be embarrassed. We're both men here." His voice was calm, but there was something in his tone that made my pulse race. He reached out, resting his hand on my shoulder, his fingers warm and firm. I couldn't ignore the spark that seemed to pass between us. That touch, it was like he could feel exactly what I was feeling. That nothing shifted between us. He moved closer to me, his hands gentle but firm as he began to slide my shirt off. Every touch, every movement made my heart race faster, and I let it happen, completely giving in to the moment. His hands explored my body, slow and intentional, as if he wanted to memorize every inch. For the first time, I let go of every doubt and just let myself feel. Over the days that followed, we fell into this rhythm. Tiago and I shared glances, touches, small moments that only we understood. My dad eventually came back, and we had to go on as if nothing had changed. But every time I met Tiago's eyes, I felt the tension, the weight of everything we'd shared. It felt impossible to hide, but somehow we managed. Whenever my dad went out, we found those secret moments again. Each one felt more intense, more urgent, like we were trying to capture something we both knew couldn't last. Soon enough, it was time for us to leave Tiago's apartment. My dad mentioned it casually one evening, saying we'd be moving out in a few days. The news hit me harder than I expected. I'd known from the start that this was temporary, but leaving felt like I was leaving a part of myself behind. On our last day there, I lingered, hoping to find a moment alone with Tiago. When it finally came, he simply smiled at me, his eyes saying everything we couldn't put into words. "Take care of yourself, Lucas," he whispered, his voice soft and steady. And with one last touch, he let me go. Back in my own bed, miles away from that apartment, I lay awake at night, replaying those memories, wishing I could hold on to them forever.